This is the Chat City interviews from 103.2 Preston FM with your host, Hughie Parr.
And in the studio, it's always a pleasure to welcome my next guest. It's Vicci McCann, and Vicci's from Lancashire Archives here in Preston. Vicci, in fact, I've left you adrift there. Can you pull the microphone close to you, please? This is live radio, you see. That's it, and get you nice and close to the microphone, and we should then be okay. Yeah, there we are. And Vicci, a very good morning to you.
Good morning.
And as I said, whenever I talk to you from Lancashire Archives, people who I'm talking to after the show or a few days later, people find it so fascinating, you know, the information that's stored here in the archives, and the fact that we have such important information. Because I remember the last time, I think it was the last time we were met, we were talking about probably the earliest thing that's in the archives, and that goes back to approximately when?
1115 is the date of the earliest document we've got, that we say that we know of because it was found by a researcher. Originally we thought the earliest document we had was from 1120, but then they discovered it's actually an older document that's been reused as a seal tag, so to attach a wax seal on the bottom of a slightly later document, but it's dated from 1115. But because not everything we have is catalogued as we would like it to be, sometimes people come up with things and say, did you know you had this? And you think, well, no, I didn't. So it's really helpful when researchers point things out to us.
Right. And I'm sure lots of people don't realise that there's often lots of events or there's things happening around the city that they can come along and either be part of or listen to. I know last time you and I met, we were talking about that February has been LGBT History Month. And when we met, I know you were talking about someone in, was it Burnley? Somewhere Burnley, not far away. Yeah. And some of the information that person had found, particularly local to that area, to do with LGBT, and that was going back again quite some time.
Yes, yeah, there were the records of the Burnley Borough Quarter Sessions and the Burnley Borough Police, and we found, looking into those records, that we were able to find quite a lot of information about people in Burnley who've been prosecuted for what they called gross indecency at the time, but for basically being homosexual.
So when information comes along, like we were talking about it being LGBT History Month in February, do you then collate more information that then actually goes into the archives? Is that the way you build up the history within the archives of a certain subject?
It is, yes, certainly. I mean, we do have gaps in our holdings, and certainly with community archives. So, for example, our BME collections are, practically non-existent. We're working with the Chinese community on various projects to try and get some archives in from there, and also with the LGBT communities, because we want our archives to reflect the communities in Lancashire. We want it to be a complete picture of the history of Lancashire, and obviously if these communities aren't represented, then it's not.
And tomorrow we're expecting Preston to come to a near standstill, sadly, for the funeral of Sir Tom Finney that's taking place in the city. What do we have within the archives in respect to football, etc., here in Preston?
We actually have the Football League archive. Some of it is still retained by what was the National Football Museum at Deepdale, and they still have a store there where they have some of the records, but the vast majority of them came to us in the archive. So we've got the minutes for the Football League from... I don't think we've got the earliest one. The earliest one somehow went missing a long time ago, well before we got them.
Right.
But we've certainly got from the second one up to today.
So that's information around the Football League, etc., and about the game here in Preston and the history to the game in Preston.
It's all the very earliest teams that came together to form the Football League, and I think we've probably still got at least 2 grounds in Lancashire that have been in continuous use since the formation of the Football League in about 1893, I think it was. So there's Turf Moor in Burnley, and Deepdale is one of them as well. And I think the other one is possibly Anfield, but that's not in Lancashire anymore. So
that's right.
So we don't talk about that.
It's down the road, isn't it? Yes.
So it's that sort of whole evolution of the game of football in Britain.
Right. And any references to Sir Tom within the archives? Do we hold anything?
Yeah, unfortunately we don't have sort of the full Tom Finney archive, but we do have things relating to Preston North End, usually programmes and that sort of thing. We did an exhibition last year because I think it was the 125th anniversary of the Football League, and we borrowed some things from the Football Museum, including a pair of Tom Finney issue boots, which were they were just branded with Tom Finney's brand, I suppose. But we've got a programme from 1951 for PNE, which has got it's interesting because it's got Tom Finney in the lineup for the game, and then a couple of pages away there's an advert for his plumbing business, which I really love. I love that whole idea.
Yes, yeah. So he's there listed as a player, and then also within the same programme is the business.
Yeah.
All right, lovely. And what about events coming up? What's happening at the archives soon? Any events taking place, or things that people can come along and find out more about? Yeah, well,
for sort of a year and a half now, I've been running a very successful series of Tuesday evening talks, which are free, and they just last for an hour from 6:30 till 7, and they're on the second Tuesday of the month. It all starts off in March with Women's History Month, so we've got a talk on every Tuesday evening in March, and we've got such treats like sources in the archives to research the history of domestic violence or violence against women in the court records, which is a very relevant issue, and it's something that people have to cope with today. And I think it's fascinating to look back and see how women were able to try and find help when they certainly had less rights than we do today, and certainly less power. And then we've got Dr. Jill Liddington of Leeds University coming to talk about her research into her new book about the suffragette movement and the boycott of the census in 1911.
Right.
And then we've got a lady called Elizabeth Roberts, who was from Lancaster University Centre for Northwest Regional Studies, but she ran an oral history project a few years ago, and she went and collected the histories of various people across Lancashire and certainly in the Lancaster area, and she's come to give a talk about working wives and mothers in the textile industry in the early part of the 20th century, and she uses a lot of the oral histories in her talk, so that will be really interesting. And then finally we've got Andrew Walmsley from our Community Heritage Service, who's going to come and talk about how to use the resources across libraries, archives and museums for researching the history of suffragettes.
Right, and that's all part of the History Month in March?
It is, yeah, Women's History Month.
And where do the talks take place?
They take place at the Record Office on Bow Lane at Lancashire Archives, and as I said, they're free, and you get a cup of tea. And possibly a biscuit, depending on how generous we're feeling.
Would there be a biscuit?
And they are really interesting, and we're really grateful for the people who come and give these talks.
Right, and you can just turn up on the day. Just turn up.
You can,
on
yes,
the time.
Yeah. There's no booking necessary. All the details will be on the County Council's Cultural Services What's On pages as well on the website.
And Vicki, how long have you been with Archives in Preston?
With Lancashire Archives, I've been there, on the 5th of January this year. It was my 10th anniversary, so...
Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
What is probably the most interesting thing to you personally within the archives?
There's so much. And
I would imagine.
I was thinking about it the other day, because I come in on the train from Lancaster, and you can see the record office from the train. You can see the stacks, and I always sort of look across and think, I'll be at work in 5 minutes. But then I see the stacks, I think... Actually, I genuinely love the collections. I'm really proud of the fact that I helped to look after these collections for Lancashire, because even though I was born in Cheshire, it's my adoptive county and my children are born here, so I feel really quite proud about it. And there are so many things. There are so many stories. You can just, I mean, the witchcraft documents, they're some of my particular favourite ones.
Yes.
I sort of researched those when we had the Lancashire Witch anniversary in 2012, and we haven't got any relating to that particular case, but we do have other documents from the 17th century, and it's the really personal stories, the woman sort of petitioning the Quarter Sessions Court because her husband's been accused of witchcraft, and he's in Lancaster Castle, and she's saying he'll starve and we'll starve, and I've got 3 children under the age of 5. And it's those stories, that you want to find out more, about these people, and you realise that a lot doesn't change in terms of very basic human needs.
And I suppose you never know who's going to contact during the day asking to find out information about whatever topic. No,
I mean, this is the thing, that people can come with all sorts of research interests and potentially any question. I was quite pleased a couple of years ago because when I first started, I was a little bit, you're nervous, you've got to get your confidence, and somebody had brought in some plans of St Anne's radar station. And I had to make the decision whether to keep them or send them back or throw them away. And I remember one of my colleagues came over and said, "Oh, you're not keeping those, are you?" Just after I decided I was going to keep them. And I thought, well, no, I've decided I'm keeping them. So somebody will be interested, because I can make a case for keeping anything. Some of my colleagues are more ruthless. And, we couldn't keep absolutely everything. We do have to make informed decisions on, what to take in. But so I decided to keep these plans. And then 8 years later, suddenly we got an inquiry from someone saying, "Have you got any plans of St Anne's radar station?" So it was a moment of jubilation on my behalf.
How on earth do you decide what you will keep?
Well, we have to look at the material that people are bringing to us, how much there is, what information it gives you. I mean, for example, in the past when we had more space, we were opened in 1940. And originally, they kept practically everything. And sometimes when you go back into collections, you'll find books with 1 page filled in and the rest is completely blank, and it takes up a lot of space. And some things just are never looked at, and the information in them is really not that useful. So you have to make a judgment, but you try not to be too subjective about it, because as I say, you could make a case for anything and people will be interested in all sorts of things.
Yes. I'm sure, I say you never know what kind of requests you're going to encounter daily. I would imagine also at times you get some very strange requests as to trying to find out if you have information on a subject.
We do, yes. I think we had recently one about ghosts. We get a lot of these ghost hunters and sort of people who want to photograph asylums and things contacting us and saying, "Can we get into Whittingham?" No, we can't do that for you. But you do get some some unusual things and very personal histories as well, very personal and sometimes very sensitive requests.
Yes, I'm sure. So, Vicky, remind us when the talks begin again through March.
They're on every Tuesday in March. It starts on 4th of March, Tuesday 4th of March. And then we have talks leading up to June on the second Tuesday of every month. And they include talks about stained glass, using the archive to inspire art. And also there's a talk about a lady's family history, which is connected to Heathcliff, the character in Wuthering Heights.
Is that right?
So, yeah.
And that's when?
That's the one in June.
Right. Well, we shall be seeing you back hopefully next month for your visit to us here at Chat City. And
if you have any news or events you'd like to share with Hughie and our Chat City team, why not give us an email, chatcity@preston.fm.